Hello and welcome back to another episode of my short video series on EZBoards. This time we'll have a look into the more advanced configuration options. So let's go back to our EZBoards installation folder. As I told you last time already, we have some artifacts here in the briefing folder. We have our pages as HTML files, so let me just open them. And now we're going to have a look at the configuration on what actually goes onto these pages. And this is done in the main folder in a file called config_user.bat. So you need to open this configuration file with a text editor. We've already seen this file once in the last video where we talked about the images output directory. So I'm not going to talk about this again. This was for open kneeboards. But now I'm going to talk about the more fundamental stuff of which data goes actually onto the kneeboards, because all this is configurable. And here you see how it is done. You actually have two set instructions here where you set for page 1 and page 2 what the contents are. And the contents are specified by these one-letter shortcuts. They each stand for a different part of the information. So here, for example, P stands for the package roster, C stands for the COM letter. So those two will go on our first page, while on the second page we have S for the steer points, T for the target steer points, W for the weather report, and Z for the timestamps. And so you can change this. For example, you can just remove the C here. So let's save this and let's generate our kneeboards by clicking on EZBoard.bat. So notice I don't have BMS open at the moment. So in the usual case, you'll have BMS open. You'll go to your briefing screen, you press the print button, and then manually update the kneeboards or get it updated automatically by using EZWatch. That's what I explained in the first video. But this time I'll just rerun EZBoards and use the data from a previously generated briefing file, so I don't actually need to go into BMS itself. So I have regenerated the kneeboards now, and now let's have a look at that first page. When I update it with F5, you'll see that the COM letter parts has disappeared, because now I restricted myself to just have the package information part. Now, talking about the package information part, as you can see, the letter P says package roster, including the lines with comments. And what is meant by this is those last lines here, which contain the tag information. This was hard-coded in previous versions of EZBoards, but is now configurable. And actually, what EZBoards will put on those lines are the contents of the file comments.txt. So if we open this in text editor, we see this is just a comma-separated list of values. We have 5 lines for the 5 different possible flights, and then 4 columns. And so this is the comment that goes on the first flight on the first column, second column, second seat, and so on. And so by default, this is the same information as EZBoards used to have hard-coded in previous versions, but now it is configurable. So, for example, if we go on the second flight in the second column and we remove this and put hello there, save the thing, run EZBoards once again, and go back to our briefing, refresh, and now you will have the text hello in this particular place. So that's a way to configure this for people that want to have other things on their kneeboards depending on flight and seat number. There's also a way to completely get rid of this line. In the configuration, as you can see here, Q is the same package roster but without the command lines. So if I replace P by Q, save again, generate again, and then update the page, you'll see that the line has completely vanished, and thus the package roster information is a bit more dense and compact. You do just as you want. Okay, now the funny thing is that you aren't even limited to 2 pages. You can actually just add another page here. So let's do that. Let's type set page bracket, and then you maybe think you need to call it page 3, but that's not actually the case. You can call it whatever you want. This is just an identifier. This is also being used for the file names, but you can call it whatever you want. So let's call this the comms page bracket, and then let's put our comms letter just on this page. Again, we can save this, run EZBoards once again. And now what we have in the briefing folder is we have another page, comms HTML and comms PNG. So opening the comms page will of course give you now the page that only contains the comms letter. And if you remember from the last video, in images you will have just the images for use with external viewers like OpenEBoard, and here as well of course you have now an additional file which is named comms.png, which contains that comms page. So you get the idea. There's practically no limitation on how much different pages you can make here and how you call them. So that's for this part. I think it's quite clear. And now let's go to the second part of configuration, which is the in-game kneeboards, which basically will tell us what page we have defined here will go onto what page of the in-game kneeboard. Now, first thing of course to notice is that this part is completely optional, because if you're using, for example, OpenEBoard and don't use the in-game kneeboards at all, you could just theoretically remove all these instructions and you would be fine. It would even generate a bit faster. So if you don't need that, then just remove it. But if you want to have the in-game kneeboards, then this is how you specify which information goes onto which kneeboard. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It basically says which kneeboard should have which of the pages you defined above. Now we use here a little syntax that allows us to specify the in-game kneeboard. The identifier is either F16 or F15 and then underscore and then a number between 1 and 16, because remember on each kneeboard you have 16 possible pages. And then in the case for the F16 you have a left and right kneeboard, so you specify this by an uppercase L or R, while as in the F15 you only have one kneeboard, so you don't and you must not specify the left-right identifier. And so you tell it what to put on this page. So for example, what we can do is duplicate this one and say that on the third page for the F16 on the right side we now put our comms page. So all you have to do is that this identifier must match the one you have defined above here, and then the corresponding texture, the corresponding page will be put on the texture for the third page or for the page we have defined here. Notice that this completely changes from previous version of EZBoards, where we had the logic that we always worked with double pages, but now you really are in a logic where you specify single pages, and EZBoards takes care of the technical stuff of putting your single page on the right texture file. And this is completely configurable. So again, let's see how this works. Let's save this and regenerate the kneeboards. And what I'll do to show you is not actually open BMS itself, but I will go directly to the texture folder. And here you can see we have our first 2 pages, and now we specified an additional page, which is the 3rd one for the F16 on the right side. And there it is. These are the first pages, the second pages, and this one is the 3rd. And as you can see on the right side, this is our COM letter. So once in game, you will find your COM letter on the 3rd page of the right side kneeboards. Okay, I think that should be pretty clear. Just notice one thing, that when EZBoards overwrites these textures, it doesn't do a backup anymore. And so it means when you change the page, now you want to have, if you want to have it on the 5th page, for example, then it will still be on the 3rd page and additionally on the 5th. So you have to take care yourself of doing the backups of these texture files if you really intend to toggle back and forth. Typically, most theaters, well, I don't say most, but I noticed this for Korea and Balkans, they actually have a backup of all the theater files in the docs folder. So for example, here I'm in the normal docs folder of Korea. Yeah, it's in kneeboard templates here, F16, and here is a DDS backup with all the original kneeboards from BMS in case anything went wrong with EZBoards or you want to change the layout of pages. You can just pull in a backup from here. That's not the case for all theaters, so an idea for theater developers, I think, would be a good thing if every theater included those backups somewhere in the docs folders. If it is not the case, then maybe just do a backup yourself once you have the theater installed. Okay, that's about it. This is the last video of this series, but again, if you have any feedback, then tell me, always interested. And so see you again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.